So you finished writing your novel. Maybe you even typed those two amazing words, the end. And now you're wondering, is my book actually ready to self-publish? Should I upload it to Amazon? Should I hire an editor? Should I get beta readers? And what about the book cover and the formatting and all of those other details? And suddenly, finishing your novel, which felt like it really should be the hard part, it has been replaced by an entirely new list of things that you don't know how to do. If that's where you're at right now, I want to simplify this for you to make things less overwhelming and less intimidating, because your novel doesn't need to be perfect before you self-publish it, but it does need to be ready. And those are two different things. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 7 things that I recommend checking before you self-publish your first novel. Think of this as your pre-publishing checklist. And if you're interested in a complete roadmap that will make the self-publishing journey feel a little less intimidating and overwhelming, you can grab my detailed checklist on simple steps to self-publish your book. Download this free checklist at the link below this video. By the end of this video, my hope is that you will have a much clearer idea on whether you're ready to move towards self-publishing your book or whether there are still a few things that you want to double check first. Let's start with the most important one. Check number 1. Is the story actually finished? This might sound obvious, but there is a difference between finishing the manuscript and finishing the story. You can have 80,000 words and a final chapter and still have a story that doesn't feel completely finished. Before you worry about book covers, formatting, or uploading your novel, take a look at the story itself and ask yourself this important question. Did I deliver on the promise that I made to my reader? If you're writing a romance, for example, did you resolve the love story? If you're writing a mystery, did you solve the mystery? And if you're writing suspense, did you resolve the central danger or the threat? If you're writing fantasy, did the central conflict reach a satisfying conclusion? Your reader should reach the final pages of your novel and feel, yes, this is exactly where the story needed to go. That doesn't mean that every tiny question has to be answered, especially if you're writing a series. You can absolutely leave threads that lead into another book. But the main story question for this particular novel that you just finished should have a satisfying answer that readers love. Also look at your character's internal journey. Who were they at the beginning? Were they afraid? What were they afraid of? What did they believe? What did they truly want? And what has changed by the ending of the novel? Even in a plot-heavy novel, readers usually want to feel that everything the character experienced meant something. So before you move towards self-publishing your novel, make sure you finished more than your word count. Double check that you finished writing the story you wanted to tell for your readers. Check number 2. Have you let the manuscript rest? This is one of the simplest things that you can do, and it's completely free. When you finished your first draft, you're often too close to it to see it really clearly. You know what you intended to write, and that can make it difficult to see what actually ended up on the page. You might read a scene and think, obviously she's upset because her sister betrayed her 3 chapters ago, but your reader may not understand that connection at all. Or you might think that a character's motivation is perfectly clear because you've been thinking about that character for 6 months already. But maybe that motivation never actually made it onto the page. And that's why some distance between finishing your novel and self-publishing your novel can be very helpful. Now, you don't have to put your manuscript away for 6 months. Even if you gave yourself a few days or a week, you would create that distance that actually might be helpful to reread your story and find some of those missing gaps. That way, you can begin to see your story more like a reader and less like the person who created it. And during that break, you can work on something else. Brainstorm another story, read books in your genre, take a few days off, start learning about the self-publishing process, then come back and read your novel again. You'll probably notice things that you couldn't see before, And that's a really good thing. As you read, you're not discovering that you're a bad writer. You're finally getting enough distance to become a better editor of your own work. Check number 3. Have you done a big picture revision? One of the biggest mistakes a first-time writer can make is jumping straight from first draft to proofreading. Proofreading is important, but there's no point in fixing a comma in a scene that you're eventually going to decide to delete. Your first revision should look at the big picture of your novel. And this is where you're asking questions like, does my opening make readers want to keep reading? Does my protagonist have a clear goal and motivation? Are the stakes strong enough? Does this conflict escalate? Are there slow sections in this novel? Are there repetitive scenes? Does every major scene have a purpose? Do my characters make believable choices? Does the middle of the novel lose momentum? Does the climax really feel earned for my characters? Does the ending feel satisfying? And here's one question that I really like. If I removed this scene, would the story change? And if the answer is no, take a closer look at that scene. It might need to be removed, which is a really hard thing for us as writers because we spent so much time writing our stories. But maybe if it's not deleted, maybe this is a scene that could be combined with another scene. Or maybe this scene needs a stronger purpose. Every scene doesn't have to contain explosions or huge revelations or dramatic confrontations. Quieter scenes do matter, but sometimes there are things that we can change. A relationship changes, a new decision is made, a problem gets worse, a character realizes something, a new question appears. The reader should really feel like when they read your story that it's continuing to move forward. And this is also where you want to look for continuity problems. If your heroine has blue eyes in chapter 2 and green eyes in chapter 20, that's probably something you want to fix. And that's seriously something that's happened to me. I do know what that feels like. If your character drives 3 hours to another city, but somehow they have already arrived there 20 minutes later, you'll want to catch that too. Big picture revision is where you make sure that the story works before you polish the sentences. Check number 4. Have other people read your book? At some point, your novel needs a fresh pair of eyes, preferably several. This is where beta readers can be a huge help. Beta readers aren't necessarily editors, but they're readers who already love your writing. And they are readers who will experience your story much like your future readers will. And you can ask them questions like, where did you get bored? Where were you confused in the story? Which character did you connect with most? Was there anywhere in the story that you wanted to stop reading? Were there places where the story felt a little rushed? Did the ending satisfy you? Was there anything too predictable? Were there characters that you wanted more or less of? And one important tip here, look for patterns in the feedback. One beta reader might dislike your hero, but that doesn't automatically mean that you need to rewrite your hero. But if 4 beta readers independently tell you, I don't understand why she falls in love with him, that's something worth checking into. You're still the author, and you don't have to make every change that someone suggests. But outside feedback can really help us to see things a little clearer and sometimes can reveal our own blind spots because we are the writers of our own stories. And ideally, at least some of your beta readers should actually enjoy the kind of book that you are writing. Someone who only reads gritty crime novels may not be the best person to tell you whether your cozy small-town romance satisfies romance readers. You want feedback from people who understand and at least enjoy the experience that you are trying to create. Check number 5. Has the manuscript been properly edited and proofread? Once the story itself is working, you can begin moving toward the sentence level details. This is where it helps to understand editing and proofreading aren't exactly the same thing. There are a few levels of editing. Developmental editing looks at the big picture story. Line editing looks more closely at how your sentence and paragraphs communicate the story. Copy editing looks at such things like grammar, punctuation, consistency, and usage. And proofreading is generally the final quality check for errors before you self-publish. And depending on your experience, budget, and manuscript, you may not hire a separate professional for every single stage. But the important thing is, don't treat spell check as your entire editing process. Tools can help you catch mistakes, but they don't always know what you meant in your story. And they definitely don't experience your novel the same way a human reader does. And something else I recommend is changing the way you experience your manuscript during your editing process. Print out a chapter on a page. Change the font temporarily. Read the manuscript on another device, or read sections out loud. When you change the format, you'll often notice mistakes that your brain has been automatically correcting. Reading out loud is especially helpful for dialogue. You'll hear awkward sentences, and you'll hear repeated words, and you'll notice dialogue that doesn't sound natural, and you'll discover sentences that are so long that you run out of breath halfway through them. And this is definitely something that I've started to do. I work in Scrivener, and I'll often read my novel out loud myself, and then I'll also have another read through with Scrivener reading out loud for me. And so both things help to get rid of more mistakes and repetition in your story. And your goal isn't perfection. No published book is completely immune to the occasional typo. And this does include traditionally published books, because I've found mistakes in traditionally published books too. But your goal is simply to make the reading experience as smooth and professional as you reasonably can. You want readers thinking about your story, not about your punctuation. Check number 6. Does your book look like it belongs in the genre that you wrote it for? Now we're moving from the manuscript into the packaging. And this is where many first-time authors accidentally make things harder for themselves. I know I did when I first started writing and self-publishing my books. Your book cover isn't only supposed to be beautiful, it needs to communicate. Imagine someone scrolling through dozens of books online, and they see your book cover, and maybe for a second or two, they will pause to look at your book cover. Can these potential readers quickly understand the kind of reading experience that you're offering? Sweet small-town romance should probably not look like a dark psychological thriller. A cozy mystery shouldn't accidentally look like an epic fantasy. And a historical romance should visually communicate something different from a contemporary romantic suspense book. Your cover is making a promise before the reader ever sees chapter 1. And this is why researching other successful books in your genre can be very helpful. Look at the typography, the imagery, the colors, the composition, the character presentation, and the series branding. And especially look at books published recently. You're not trying to copy another author's cover, you're learning the visual language of your genre. Then you can ask yourself, would my ideal reader recognize that this book is for them? The same principle applies to your title, subtitle, book description, and even your author branding. Your packaging should help the right reader say, oh, this looks like something I would really enjoy. And that's very different from trying to make a book appeal to everyone. Because when we try to make our books appeal to everybody, we often make them recognizable to nobody, and then we won't have many readers, and we don't want that. So do try to make your book appeal to your specific target audience. Check number 7. Are your publishing pieces ready before you hit self-publish? And finally, don't wait until upload day to figure everything out. Before you begin to upload your novel, gather the pieces that you're going to need. Depending on where and how you are publishing, that may include things like your final edited manuscript, your formatted ebook file, your print interior file, your ebook cover, your full paperback book cover, your book description, your author biography, your categories, your keywords and metadata, your ISBN decisions, your pricing, your copyright information, your publishing or imprint information if that applies to you, your final title and series information, and any links that you want to include in the back of your book. This is where a simple self-publishing checklist can save you tremendous amount of stress. And if you're interested in a complete self-publishing checklist, you can find my free self-publishing checklist at the link below this video. A checklist really does help because you don't want to be halfway through uploading your book and suddenly realize, wait, what categories am I supposed to choose? Or I haven't written my book description yet. Or what price am I going to use for my book? You truly can make those decisions ahead of time. Self-publishing becomes much less intimidating when you're not making 20 decisions at once. You're simply following your checklist, and that really does make it easy. Here's a bonus question. Are you delaying self-publishing your book because the book isn't ready or because you're afraid? And I do want to add this last question because I think it's important for first-time writers, because I was a first-time writer and I remember how intimidating and overwhelmed I felt. And I definitely did delay uploading my book on Amazon and the other digital retailers. There really does come a point when revising your book can become another form of procrastination, because I've been there and I've done that. You can change chapter 1 again and again and again, and you can replace one word and then change it back, and you can read another book about writing and take another course and watch another video and tell yourself, I'll self-publish when the book is finally good enough. But the bar for good enough seems to keep moving. And there's a difference between recognizing that your manuscript genuinely needs more work or being afraid to let other people read it. Your first self-published novel probably won't represent the absolute best writing that you'll ever do in your lifetime. And seriously, I hope it doesn't. I hope you keep growing as a writer. And I really do hope your 5th novel is stronger, with better writing than your first novel. And I hope that your 10th novel is even better than your 5th novel. That's what happens when you continue to practice your writing craft. So don't rush an unfinished novel into self-publishing, but don't demand impossible perfection from yourself either. Your goal is not perfect forever. Your goal is a professionally prepared book that you're proud of and that you're ready to put into readers' hands. So here's a quick recap of the 7 things to check before you self-publish. Number 1, is the story actually finished? Number 2, have I given myself enough distance to evaluate my novel clearly? Number 3, have I completed a big picture revision of my novel? Number 4, have other readers given me useful feedback? Number 5, has the manuscript been properly edited and proofread? Number 6, does my book's packaging clearly fit my novel? And number 7, have I prepared the self-publishing pieces that I'll need before upload day? And if you can confidently work through those 7 checkpoints, then you're getting very ready to self-publish your novel. And just some quick encouragement that I want to leave with you today. If you have a finished first draft right now, I want you to remember something. Finishing your manuscript is a huge accomplishment, but it isn't the end of your journey. And that shouldn't discourage you, because you don't have to figure out everything about self-publishing today. You only need to figure out, what's my next step? Maybe your next step is putting your manuscript away just for a short break. Maybe it's beginning your revision. Maybe it's finding beta readers, or maybe it's hiring a proofreader, or maybe it's researching book covers. Or maybe your manuscript really is ready and it's time to start preparing those self-published files. Take the next step and then take the next one after that, because self-publishing becomes much easier when you stop seeing it as an enormous project and start seeing it as a series of small, manageable decisions. Eventually, you'll reach the moment when you are not asking, am I ever going to self-publish this book? And you'll be able to say, my book is ready. And then you can take it to that next exciting step from writer to self-published author. If this video helped you and you're wondering what really happens after your manuscript is ready, watch this video, A Simple Self-Publishing Roadmap for First-Time Writers. Watch this video next. I'll see you there.